Opening week is here, and the Rangers and Phillies are facing off this weekend in Texas. We have a crossover between Locked On Rangers and Locked On Phillies to discuss everything you need to know about this opening series and more. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers and locked onto the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm Brice, Paterik, host of the Locked On Rangers podcast for all 5 seasons. Here with me is Connor Thomas, host of the Locked On Phillies podcast, to talk about this opening series. How you doing today, Connor?
Brice, I'm doing great, man. I can't wait for baseball to be back. We were just talking about how fun of an offseason it's been for both of these teams. And, man, it's been a long couple of months waiting to see them in action. So it's going to be a fun opening series. I can't wait for Thursday.
Man, I cannot wait either. I've got a trip plan that I'm delaying to Houston. It was not planned because don't mind this Bama flag and this Final Four. It just happened to go to Houston, a city that I've never said a crossword about on this or any other podcast. Just a delightful city that I'm going to go see. But we are here to talk about this fun series. We're going to break down what's new with the Philadelphia Phillies, for Rangers fans to know what's new with the Rangers, for Phillies fans to know and what to expect from this weekend series, and look back at the last time these two teams played on opening day, which, spoiler alert, teams look very different today than they did back then. But Connor, let's get into it. This was a busy offseason for the Phillies, coming off a great year last year. What happened this offseason? What happened last season with the Phillies? And what does it look like going into this year as the reigning NL champion Philadelphia Phillies?
Yeah, it's awesome. I actually was just down by the ballpark. I was at the Wells Fargo Center where the Flyers and Sixers play, which is across the street from Citizens Bank Park. They got a giant new scoreboard that's like 2 times the size of the old one. They got the NL Champs banner hanging out front where fans are going to be walking in about 2 weeks when they have opening day actually here. And yeah, it was a magical run last year. This team caught fire, making it in as the final team in the National League, and then go all the way to the World Series, come within 2 games of winning it. It's the heavily favored Houston Astros, who we know are a juggernaut and will be again this year. But and then they go ahead and into this offseason, and all they do is they double down and say Dave Dombrowski and John Middleton agree to spend more money. You go out and you get Trea Turner. You go out and you get Taijuan Walker to bolster the rotation. You make a trade for Gregory Soto, one of the best young relievers in baseball. It was basically a second Jose Alvarado. So now you got 2 lefties that throw 100 plus, and neither of them know where it's going. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic in the bullpen. And you have a very interesting setup. And then you have the guys that you acquired. Well, the main guy you acquired last year at the trade deadline that stayed, and Brandon Marsh to play center field. So a couple upgrades at positions, especially a huge one at shortstop with Trea Turner playing that position instead of Didi Gregorius, who started last year on opening day. It's been a re-up for the Philadelphia Phillies, which not every team that competes does. Sometimes they rest on their laurels, I should say. So this is going to be a really fun series for Phillies fans and for Rangers fans too, to see some high-level baseball, I think, on both sides.
Yeah, there's a lot of talented players on this Phillies roster, including their lineup just absolutely full of boppers, including a guy who shares my name but spells it incorrectly. Unfortunately, we are not going to see him in this series. What is the deal with Brice Harper? I know he had surgery in the offseason. When are Phillies expecting him to be back? And I guess, are we going to see him even in the dugout for opening day?
Yeah, so he was down in spring training, so he was taking ground balls. I don't know if he'll be traveling or not. I'd imagine you're going to see him at Citizens Bank Park a good amount, but I'm not sure if he'll take road trips with the team. Now, the good news for Phillies fans, he was not placed on the 60, or he will not be placed on the 60-day injured list when the season starts. So that says that there's at least some percentage of a chance, even if it's 1%, that he's back before May 29th, which would be ridiculous coming off of off-season Tommy John surgery, and to be back within like the first couple months of the season. I don't know that it's realistic, but it's something that shows you he's healing quickly. He's ahead of schedule. So we won't see him obviously in this series or for the first couple weeks or months of the season. He will be back though before the halfway point, and you'll get a chance to see him. And I'll tell you what, Brice, we saw him take ground balls at in the infield the other day at spring training following Rhys Hoskins' ACL tear. I'm sure people are aware of that, but if you're not, some big news for the Phillies. Their first baseman gone for the year with complete ACL reconstruction. Could Brice Harper play first base? Guy came up as a catcher. He's got a little bit of that athleticism in him. Maybe that's something he does when he comes back and he's ready to play. So Brice is set for an interesting year, and we won't see him in this series, but we'll see him in a couple months here with the Phillies.
Gosh, I remember Bryce Harper catcher and thinking, yeah, that's gonna stick. No, he's just
Yeah.
too he's just too good a hitter. Maybe the move is actually moving Alec Boehm to first base and Bryce Harper at third base. No, that's probably way too insane. But it would be a lot of fun. Speaking of defensive misadventures, the Phillies, I should say, have had some adventures in the outfield. Two guys in their corner outfield in Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos who were playing the field. And I didn't realize that Harper was dealing with this injury. And I'm like, why? Bryce Harper cannot be a worse defender than sticking Kyle Schwarber and Castellanos out there. But Castellanos made some improvements during the postseason, some nice diving plays. Where are those guys going to line up in defensively this season?
Yeah, you're going to have them in the same spots. Really, the lineup's very, very similar. The only difference is from the end of last year to this year is Brice Harper's not going to be your DH, Rhys Hoskins is not going to be your first baseman, and Gene Segura is not in the middle of the infield. But Kyle Schwarber will still be in left. Nick Castellanos will still be in right. Really, because the Phillies don't have a lot of outfield depth. Their two outfield bench pieces are Dalton Guthrie, who's barely played at the major league level, and Jake Cave, who has a little bit of time up at the major league level, but he's not really an everyday caliber player on a team competing for a World Series. So, yeah, you'll see Schwarber in left, Castellanos in right, and Marsh in center, and that'll be the defensive alignments for most of the season until maybe August or September if Brice Harper fully recovers and can actually play the field instead of just DH.
Yeah, and obviously the biggest signing of this offseason for the Phillies was Trea Turner coming in. And he was a guy who I was really excited about. These last two seasons of free agent shortstop classes have been just, it's insane.
Incredible,
Like literally
right?
all of the best shortstops basically have been on the market or were traded for by the Mets and then signed before they could become free agents. But what are you excited about with Trea Turner? Are you a little worried about him being such a speed first guy, or did all of those World Baseball Classic home runs make you forget about every concern?
Dude, he came back to spring training like 3-4 days ago and reported back. He's played in 2 games since. He's homered in both of them. I don't know. He legitimately might just hit a home run every game of the season. He might be the first player to hit 162. Think Judge's 62 was impressive. Trea Turner's going to hit 100 more than that this year. No, I mean, here's the thing. You're playing in Citizens Bank Park. It's a hitter's park. He's going to be their leadoff hitter. That's something I know that you were hoping he would be the leadoff hitter because of the matchup that gives us on opening day for the first at bat of the year, which will be awesome between him and some guy D something DeGrom. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are.
Thought we got rid of him, but no, I'm hoping the power will play a little bit better in Citizens Bank Park. We know he's going to hit about 300 with the new rules on the base paths. I mean, the dude might steal 50 bags. So he's everything. To me, he's the best player on this team, even when Brice Harper is healthy, because he's a more versatile player. Brice Harper's the better hitter. Trea Turner's the better baseball player. So I'm super excited to see what he brings to this roster.
Yeah, and I'm excited for what this Phillies team is going to do this year, coming off a fun season. I feel like both of our teams are getting a little less respect than they should heading into the season coming up. We're going to look at what the Rangers are going to do this season and shock the baseball world what they did already this winter. But first, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, or if you're a big business and you're the Philadelphia Phillies and your new hire is Trea Turner, then that maybe is a little bigger wager. But, you want to be 100% certain you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Now, man, let me ask you as we go ahead and we get into our next segment here. Let's flip it a little bit to the Rangers so we can talk. I hate to hog with what you guys did this offseason. All of the talk about how improved the Philadelphia Phillies are and how exciting they are. I'm sure a bunch of people listen to Lock On Phillies and they're thinking, thank goodness Jacob deGrom is out of the NL East so we don't have to see him. And they're going to show up on Thursday and turn their TVs on and say, how in the world is this guy still facing us? What was the offseason like? What's the DeGrom move like? Talk me through the mentality of the fan base down there in Texas.
Well, the Rangers have had two absolutely home run. You could not have asked for better off seasons the last 2 years. They started before last season when they signed Marcus Semien and Corey Seager to those massive deals. They also signed John Gray, and he was all right, but he was also hurt. But the offense improved last year, but they needed a lot more starting pitching. Martin Perez came back on a 1-year deal and was fantastic, had his first All-Star season. John Gray was kind of hurt, and behind that, the rotation was yikers for the most part. And then here they go. They bring in Bruce Bochy before they even get DeGrom, and then they go sign Jacob freaking DeGrom away from the Mets, which made Mets fans very mad and talk a lot of trash in my mentions and in my YouTube comments. And then they got Justin Verlander so they can go take him away from our division.
Oh, Mets fans never go away, though.
Yeah.
Mets fans will still keep talking to you.
Oh, yeah, no, they're still in my mentions after his third spring start. Like, oh, I don't know if he's healthy, but like it was just absolutely magical. I didn't let myself hope in DeGrom. Like Chris Young has been doing some really amazing things in free agency the last couple of years. I mean, talking Bruce Bochy out of retirement was absolutely huge. I thought, I'm like, there's no way. They were talking about it, but I'm like, there's no way he's going to come like to this Rangers team that just lost 94 games. But they didn't just get Jacob DeGrom. They got basically entirely new rotation. The only one who wasn't signed to a deal this offseason is John Gray, who was signed last offseason. Not Marcus Semien. Where'd we go? Martin Perez was signed to a qualifying offer because he pitched so well. I don't think he would have gotten $19.65 million a year on the open market, but the Rangers are like, we cannot afford to lose this guy. They retained him before they signed Jacob DeGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, and Andrew Heaney, who's coming off a really, really solid season with the Dodgers. Eovaldi is back to his former self that would finish top 5 in Cy Young voting with Boston in 2021. He's touching 99, sitting in the upper 90s with his velocity, and he looks like a strong number 2 behind Jacob DeGrom. And if Martin Perez is anything like what he was last year, a guy who pitched nearly 200 innings with a sub-3 ERA and was an all-star, if that guy is your number 3, that is just such a vastly improved rotation from where the Rangers have been last year, the year before that, and maybe even ever if all 5 of these guys can be healthy, which, again, is the question.
Yeah, dude, it's not a team that you want to face right now at the start of the season because I know people will talk about, the injury concerns with the rotation. You have a couple guys who haven't been the most durable in their career. But I'll tell you what, they're at least going to start one game this year, and the Philadelphia Phillies are going to see your 3 best, and that is going to be a struggle. But what part of the Rangers are you most excited about? I know you make the big moves as position players 2 years ago, and then this past year is the one where you go ahead and you solidify the rotation with Eovaldi and, of course, DeGrom. What are you more excited about, the position players in the lineup or that new rotation that looks to be really, really good in the American League?
I'm really excited about the rotation. I think last year the offense, it really did take a step forward, but because the starting pitching was so weak and it cascaded into making the bullpen look a lot worse, you couldn't really notice how much better the offense was. But if you look at the Pythagorean win-loss record for the Rangers last year, so their actual record was 68-94. They never felt like that bad a team. They were historically bad in one-run games, but the Pythagorean, they're expected with the amount of runs scored versus runs given up, was a 77-85 team, so significantly better. And I am really excited to just see Jacob DeGrom pitch every 5th day. Like when either Martin Perez or John Gray were pitching and were healthy on the mound, and the Rangers offense was there, they had a pretty decent team. I think above a 500 record. So just like having a half decent starting pitching is going to be a huge improvement. And there are some young guys who, literally young guys who I am very excited about, especially Josh Young, the Rangers rookie third baseman who went to Texas Tech just like myself. Been watching this kid hit since he was 19. He's had some injuries the last couple of years. In spring training, he had a shoulder injury we thought was going to keep him out for the entire year last year. Ended up coming back, making his debut, homering in his first at-bat like he said he wanted to do since he was a kid. The year before, he had a broken foot that kept him out for 6 weeks. Otherwise, I think in 2021, we could have seen him make his major league debut, but had a little cup of coffee, struggled because I still think he was pretty hurt, but came back a little early, played for about 4 weeks and was fine. But I think he's going to be a big part of this lineup that is, I think, really, really underrated.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait to honestly watch the Rangers from afar. It's a very fun team in the American League. And you brought up not getting as much respect as I think they deserve. It's something that we're kind of both feeling because the Philadelphia Phillies are the defending National League champions. I mean, they won the pennant last year, and the highest I've seen them on any power rankings is like eighth. And the Rangers aren't even like in that conversation for the top 10, which is crazy to me considering the strength of the rotation, the moves you guys made. I feel like it's almost like a delayed explosion, right? Like it's a delayed bomb going off because you made all these signings, the two big ones last offseason with position players. And I think that gets overshadowed by the DeGrom move this offseason. And I think even other moves in the rotation get overshadowed. Like everyone just sees DeGrom. They don't see the strength of this rotation as a whole. And then they also forget about the moves that were made to solidify the infield and just position players in general. Listen, it's going to be a fun year for you guys. It almost feels like, as Phillies fans, we're paying like a toll or a fare at the start of the season to be able to watch DeGrom pitch. It's like, okay, you can watch him pitch out of your division, but you got to face him once first, and then you can enjoy it without having to deal with him. So I do think you guys are set up for a great year, and I'm sure you got to be super excited about what that means for their chances in the division.
Oh, I am so excited. I've been hosting this podcast since 2019. This is the first year where I'm like, everyone thinks my team sucks and you're wrong. The other years it's been like, you think my team sucks and they kind of do. And I just had to shut up about it. But now it's like, all right, I'm ready to be that scrappy underdog and, pick some fights where necessary. Coming up, we're going to look at this opening weekend matchup, the last time these two teams played on opening day. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. The Built March Madness bracket is here, and we know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now's the time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote on your favorites. Connor, do you have a favorite bar that you're voting on? I feel like it's always so tough for me to choose.
Dude, I'm a cookie dough guy. Like, so easy for me. I love cookie dough everything, so I'm going there.
Yeah, that is a great flavor to choose. If you have a different flavor, then you can go vote for that as well. Make your voice heard. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing to where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. If you haven't tried it, you've got to. It is the best tasting protein bar out there. They are delicious and they're good for you. I don't know how they do it. It's some kind of wizard magic, but you've got to go try them for yourself. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in and support your pick. Now, the last time these two teams played on opening day, the rosters looked very, very different. It was 2014, one of the weirder seasons. The Rangers, in that stretch, were good. 2014 was the season from all heck, as Rangers fans can remember. Literally everybody and their dog got hurt, and it was just absolutely horrendous. Can you name me who was the opening day leadoff hitter for the Phillies in 2014? I will give you the pitching matchup. It was Cliff Lee.
It was Lee. I was going to go Halladay.
Versus, there's no way in heck you'll guess who was the Rangers starter that day. It was Tanner Scheppers.
Yeah, that was my second guess. I was going to go Tanner. No, I had no idea. The leadoff hitter in 2014 for the Phillies, would that have been Ben Revere?
Yes, it would have, followed by Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Ryan
Hang on. Jimmy was see, that's the crazy thing. I thought for some reason Jimmy might have been out for a little bit because I know they had Ben Revere, but it's crazy thinking back and the trajectory of where the organization went that they batted Ben Revere first over Jimmy Rollins. But
well, I mean, Ben Revere had a 3-hit, 3 RBI day, and Jimmy Rollins only had 1 hit. Granted, it was a grand slam off of Tanner Scheppers, but just a weird turn of events. Like looking at what the Rangers lineup looked like back then: Shin-Soo Choo leading off, Elvis, Prince Fielder, Adrian Beltre, and of course Alex Rios. There, just
how could you forget?
And making an appearance, future Ranger great in that game, Jake Diekman. Just
there you go. Yes.
Fun little fact there. But these teams are very different. Both are looking to compete. I can't remember how good the Phillies were that year.
Not great. That was started the fall off. That was in the playoff drought. So I don't think we knew that it was going to be another 7 years until the Philadelphia Phillies made the playoffs, or 6 years, I guess. But they weren't great from about 2013 on. That was the twilight years of Philadelphia Phillies time for Utley and Rollins and that core, and they were falling off. But you can't let those guys walk, right? They were legends.
No. No, and I respect the Phillies for not letting them walk, but we have some current living legends. These pitching matchups have not been officially announced except for opening day.
Right.
But the others, we have a pretty good feel of what it's going to be. Game one, we have Jacob DeGrom versus Aaron Noah. Heck of a starting pitching matchup to start off the season. And in game two, another great one on Saturday. Nathan or Nate, I still don't know, goes back and forth. Eovaldi versus Zach Wheeler. Then Martin Perez versus either Taijuan Walker or who is the other?
Bailey Falter. So Bailey Falter was slated to be your fifth starter. Then Ranger Suarez had a little bit of forearm tightness, so it forced him into the four spot in the rotation. And Matt Strahm, who's a bullpen guy with the Red Sox last year, but he has made some starts with the Padres. He's going to start the fifth game of the year. We don't know who the third starter is because Taijuan Walker pitched for Team Mexico in the World Baseball Classic, and he was a little late getting back because, of course, Mexico goes to the semis and loses to Japan. Before they took down Team USA. So we'll see if Walker's ready to go for that third game. He's the preferred starter. It's just going to see if his throwing program links up with that. If not, it'll be Bailey Falter, who started, I want to say, 13 games last year for the Phillies. Lefty, has some solid stuff, but still a young pitcher that needs some work.
Yeah, it is going to be a great matchup. And I mean, for both these teams, they both have playoff aspirations. I mean, I think the Phillies' playoff aspirations are maybe a little more realistic. Not that this Rangers team isn't good enough to make the playoffs, but jumping from a 90-plus loss team into the playoffs is difficult despite all the things that the Rangers have going for them. And I'm curious, how critical is this series early on for the Phillies? Does Philadelphia feel like, all right, we have to win this series and kind of get off started? Because, I mean, both of these two teams are in some incredibly difficult divisions.
Well, you know what? I actually haven't talked about this, so I appreciate you bringing this up so I can get into it just shortly here. But I think there's a feeling in Philadelphia that whatever happens over the first couple months of the season doesn't matter because of the way last year went. You were behind the eight ball. You were like 9 games below 500 when they fired Joe Girardi, and all of a sudden you go on this great run with Rob Thompson and start winning games like crazy, even with Bryce Harper out. So now I feel like this fan base thinks, hey, you can win without Bryce Harper. You can get behind the eight ball early. Doesn't matter. You still make the playoffs. You still go to the World Series. And to some extent, it's not like you're dead in the water if they don't play well out of the gate. But I think it's important without Bryce Harper for this team mentally to prove to themselves that they're not just number 3. They're the guys around him as well that can win baseball games. It's a super talented roster. So this series is a nice jumping off point, especially when you look at guys like Trea Turner and Taijuan Walker, if he does throw, for joining the team in their first appearance. And it's also important for this team to prove to themselves that they can withstand Rhys Hoskins being out for the year, Bryce Harper being out for the first couple of months, and overcome losing 2 of their best position players.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a big test for the Rangers because obviously it's Jacob deGrom's first start, Bruce Bochy's first series. And the Rangers are in a division with, unfortunately, the Houston Astros, much as we have tried to not have that, and for the longest time didn't, because shoved them into the NL,
Yes.
where they belonged.
We sent them back.
Please, someone send them back to the NL Central. I don't want to deal with them anymore. But this Rangers first month, I mean, I think it's going to be really critical for the Rangers because, I mean, this Texas team they were so good for so long. I feel like people have just forgotten about the Texas Rangers because, quite frankly, they should have. This team has been pretty uninspiring, pretty not good. They have not had a winning month before this June. Actually, no, I think it was May. The month of May was their first winning month since 2019. Not even
That's
a month.
crazy.
They had not had a winning month since then, and they didn't have a winning record at all this year. At the end of May, they were up to 500, lost on the first day of June, and were they were at 500, 24-24 at the very last day of May after beating the Rays, then lost the last two games of that series to the Rays in June 1st and June 2nd, and did not even sniff 500 after that. So this team needs to start quickly. They have a pretty easy schedule to start. I mean, they do begin against the Phillies, difficult first series, then
Right.
they play against the Orioles, 3 games there. But the rest of the month, outside of a series with the Astros on the road and the Yankees to close it out, thankfully that's at home, they got a pretty easy first month, and they really need to take advantage of it. They go on a road trip to face the Cubs. They go on the road to face the Royals. They face the Royals at home. They face the A's. They face the Reds. This is a first month for the Rangers. Really need to prove to themselves, hey, we're here, we're contenders, and we need to have a strong first month because it's been so freaking long since this team has been relevant and winning. And they need a hot start, because if you squander those series against those bad teams, then it's like, what are you even doing?
Yeah, I got you. Listen, I like the Phillies in this series simply because I do still think that they're the slightly more talented team, but it's not going to be a sweep. And I do think it's a 2-1 series split, however it breaks down. For what it's worth, you remember how the Rangers did against the Phillies last year. You guys owned us. So I don't know if there's something going on where they just don't play well down there. I don't know what it is, but the Rangers have proven that this core can beat the Philadelphia Phillies, and DeGrom certainly proven that. And they haven't seen much of Eovaldi, but you've got some crossover with when he was with the Red Sox and everything. It'll be a very interesting series for the connections between these two teams from previous places that these players were. And I think it'll be a really darn exciting one to start the season with down there in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, hugely loaded with star power throughout. I think that the Phillies definitely have a stronger starting lineup than just about any offense in baseball. We saw what they were doing in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Even when you're down guys like Rhys Hoskins and Brice Harper, it's still incredibly deep. You add a guy like Trea Turner, and I mean, it just lengthens that lineup all the more. By the way, we haven't even said probably the best player, I think, on either side, JT Realmuto, a guy who I think is one of the best players in all of baseball, the best catcher in baseball, like a hugely underrated guy who just had a ho-hum 820 OPS as probably one of the, if not the best defensive catchers in all of baseball last year.
Crazy. He's absolutely insane.
But like, this is a star-studded matchup. I mean, games 1 and 2. I mean, that's like a playoff series rotation of DeGrom versus Noah and Eovaldi versus Wheeler. Like that's playoff stuff there.
Listen, some team is going into Oakland to play opening day, or Oakland's coming into town to play opening day. I don't know what the A schedule is because no one really cares, frankly. All due respect to the Oakland Athletics. But this is like, so it's not guaranteed that you're seeing a rotation, a matchup like this caliber of a matchup in the first series of the year. So it's going to be an awesome opening day and opening series for Rangers and Phillies fans alike.
Yeah, not to mention, we get the first Sunday night baseball game of the season. Like,
you know what? I didn't even notice that yet. We do?
Yeah.
That's news to me.
Yeah,
Wow.
6
Okay,
p.m.,
cool.
I guess 7 p.m. Eastern time, going to be game 3 of this series. I don't know that the Rangers had a single Sunday night baseball game all of last year, and frankly, I don't know that they much deserved it, but this is going to be much deserved. That either Martin Perez versus Walker or Falter should be a lot of fun. I think we got an afternoon game on Saturday of Eovaldi versus Wheeler. I'm sure that will be nationally televised somewhere, but like all 3 of these games, this whole series, this whole season for both of these teams, man, what a fun way to start the baseball season.
It's going to be fun. I can't say this often to the people I'm going to cross over with this year, but best of luck because we're obviously anti-Houston after the World Series, and the Rangers are a fun, up-and-coming team whose fan base deserves something to break their way. So rooting for you after these first 3 games. Obviously rooting for the Phillies in them, but it'll be fun, and best of luck this year, man.
Yeah, best of luck to you. Keep those Mets fans sad enough to where they don't have to come into our mentions about Jacob deGrom and just like can leave us alone. And also, just I want good things for the Phillies because Philly is a great sports town and deserves even more success than they have already had. Mainly just in baseball. I don't really necessarily mean that in football.
Yeah, I figured that wouldn't be the case coming from someone in the middle of Texas, but that's all right. We'll take baseball, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, you can have hockey in basketball too. It's fine. It's fine. But thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers and Locked On Phillies your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Tom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing to both of these shows. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.